My name is Patrick King, and I'm the Sustainable Households Manager for Urban Green Lab, and we're here for another episode of Sustainable Nashville Live. The purpose of this interview series is to connect the public with those folks and organizations that are contributing to the great work around sustainability here in fair Nashville. And today, I'm here with Seema Prasad, owner of Miel Restaurant in sunny Sylvan Park. Now, before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that Urban Green Lab is a nonprofit, and if you feel so inclined to support our work, you can make a donation on our website at www.urbangreenlab.org, or you can text 444. I'm completely incorrect. It's actually behind me, but it's 44321. Team UGL to that number, and you'll get a donation link sent to your phone. Now, with all that said, let's get going. First and foremost, Seema, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good, Patrick. How are you?
I'm good. Good. Yeah. I always like to start there so we can just get on an even keel.
Yeah, we're good. It's COVID and we're good.
Yeah.
We're getting
there. All right, let's get on into it. Could you tell us about Miel Restaurant and what inspired you to open it?
So Miel is a very small neighborhood restaurant. We have 58 seats. It will be 12 years old this September. So it's been around for a little while. It is my fourth restaurant. My previous restaurants were in Seattle, Washington, and I did not open a restaurant when I first moved here. Really not understanding what this public would be interested in eating and if what they would be interested in, if it matched what I would be interested in providing. And if it wasn't a match, then it's not a match. That's okay. But after doing some private chef work for a while and really getting to know the public here through wine tastings, I learned that there was a food sensibility that was just not widely represented in the majority of the restaurant scene. You'd see Margot come out with it. There was a restaurant previously called Sasso in East Nashville. And they were smaller, much more chef-driven, farm-to-table restaurants, and they'd kind of started it. And I went ahead and opened in Sylvan Park. So different neighborhood, but with a very similar concept that we would be farm to table, we would support the local agricultural system, and that we would cook seasonally. It would be a chef-driven restaurant where the menu could change daily, and it could even change in the middle of the dinner shift. We only have 8 orders of something and they're sold out, so we have a reprinted menu in back. Or we'll verbal that to the guests. But everything would be as fresh as it could be at that moment. The other main focus of the restaurant was that we would always be a community partner. We would participate in our neighborhood, in our greater city, in a way to educate about food and provide this adventure about food and wine and why we choose the products that we choose to have on the menu. And that can take us down the sustainability road, definitely, because there's a lot of choices we get to make as business owners, especially in restaurants, that can be very sustainably minded or not. And we can get into that. We can get into that next. But Miel it's been meant to be farm to table and an adventure from the get-go.
That's amazing. I love Miel, and we 100% will be going down the sustainability road because this is Sustainable Nashville Live. So Miel is French for honey. What was the inspiration behind the name?
So honey, it's French, Spanish, and very close in Italian. So this is this Latin-based word mel that means honey. And if you do a lot of reading of historic food writing, and this can be in any culture around the world, not just the Latin-based languages, honey is the one food item that is the most written about all through Asia, all through the Islamic world, all through Mesopotamia, all through, I'm thinking of the major food writing that I've read where honey stands out. All through the Bible, all through it is the one most traded, most lauded, most treasured food item. And, it's got this really interesting quality that it never goes bad. It never spoils. It might crystallize. You'll find it in the pyramids. Yeah. And it'll be buried with these mummified bodies and as this wonderful, beautiful thing next to gold. Next to frankincense will be burned. And all these very kind of ritualistic things. Honey will be there. You can melt it down and you can learn so much about what was happening in that culture at the time, and it still has this nutrient value. So honey's kind of magical. It's one of those food items that it also very much represents pollination and the start of everything that gives life to our agriculture.
That is a beautiful answer. Yeah.
It had a lot of thought put into it.
Yeah, I can see that there was a lot of intention with that name. Yeah. So Miel was opened in 2008, 12-year anniversary coming up, you just said. And this is kind of in the early stages of the farm to table movement. What was the initial reception here in Nashville? And were there any other restaurants doing something similar like that in the area?
Yeah, so, the reception was amazing. I think, which we were surprised, not because that we didn't know that we would have an audience, but because the recession had just hit. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac had just had a big scandal, so the housing market was turned over. The stock market crashed the week we opened, and and Nashville's pipeline shut down for gas. Like, we had no gas. So everyone was bicycling places, and Priuses had just become big. They pile in a Prius, and we were full. Our dining room was full with bicycles out front and people walking, and Priuses packed in with way more people than there were seatbelts. And yeah, we were well supported, and I think it was amazing to us, knowing what had just happened around the world and in our community. To have that support. Now, we were preceded by, I've got to give Margot huge credit, and Anita Hartel and Corey, who had had Sasso before that. They had really pushed this and had not had as big of an audience, and part of it may have been location. East Nashville was still getting its legs. But Margot's been out there, and then City House had opened just about 5 or 6 months before us in Germantown. So another emerging neighborhood at the time. It had not been nearly as established, and another very farm to table, though City House is a little more Italian in bent. But same concept, that we were all doing this in just different parts of the city and a little different focus on our cuisine. But we started off very, very French, and have morphed from that to just a much more general farm to table, inspired by what is good today.
Yeah, what's in season. Sometimes for fun, I just check out y'all's menu, just because it's just so inspirational. Just oh, I saw this at the farmer's market, and now it's at Miel.
It's so much fun to come up with the things that are just, this is Andrew and Kenji and Jen, really. My kitchen staff, my kitchen are some of the most creative and amazing people that I have ever known in this industry. And I'll say I've owned restaurants off and on for 25 years. And this team, and it's really, and I attribute it to this team being together, they feed off each other's creative energy. And, we're just coming back today from a week-long break. And this is one of the most exciting times of the year, because we do it also in January, but you don't come back January 10th with all these great ingredients to work with. You come back July 8th with so much to work with that Andrew is beside himself, cannot choose what to put on the menu. So yeah, you have to look. The burrata's on there with the roasted peaches and all the beautiful things that, they'll make the burrata today, which is the other thing that amazes me. They've really delved into, he's phenomenal with charcuterie, he's phenomenal with cheese making, and these things that we can do fresh every day so that they do have the beauty of flavor and texture that we're looking for.
Yeah. Another amazing. Yeah, that's, I'm a big foodie. So if you just see me enamored by everything you're saying to the viewers, I don't apologize, because food's great.
No, it's amazing.
All right. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Nashville?
Okay, so I grew up in Seattle, and I grew up spending a lot of time with my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. So my grandmother had grown up on a farm, and also during the Depression. So everything got used, everything was composted, everything had a purpose for a second life, a second, third even life. And it was a way of life. I didn't know not composting. I didn't know not saving string. God love her, saving egg cartons. There were like 10,000 of them when she passed away, and we were cleaning things out. Like, really, Nana? But, there was a possible purpose in the future. So understanding that circle of life for nutrients in particular was a big deal, because that garden that she kept, even when she moved in the city, is what fed our family year round. Now, I thought I was just this really geeky child that couldn't afford to get Lunchables like all the other kids. And I learned later that my family didn't want me eating the Lunchables. They wanted me eating this beautiful, kale gratin or something that, they would make that was from the garden. And fresh, she would take the Italian plums and, dehydrate them into these amazing prunes that I would snack on, or dehydrated apples. And those were the snacks in our lunch. So I learned so much from her. I learned how to taste the soil and know what it needed to amend it for different crops, like how to take care of the soil below the raspberry bushes, how to get the soil ready for potatoes. Where's the sand that we found over there, and we're going to start digging it in. That clay does not break down. Clay doesn't break down. You can't put compost in it and expect it to be different. You just got to get rid of it, which I'm still stubborn about. But so I was fortunate to grow up with these amazing lessons that I don't think I realized were lessons until later in life. I'd owned these restaurants in Seattle, and it was great. And I'd gotten married, and for my former husband, it was best to move here for his career. So I sold my businesses, I signed non-competes, and I moved to Nashville. So we did this for his career and for our life. And I got here and we got divorced. So, which he and I both laugh at still today. We're like,
yeah.
But there was really no going back. I mean, I'd signed non-competes, and I was making a life for myself in Nashville, and I was really enjoying it here so much more than I thought I would. Mm-hmm. And I made great friends. I mean, Sylvia Harrelson, who owns Green Door Gourmet, or Sylvia Gagnier now, but is one of my dear friends, and we met early on in me living here. And she grew up on a dairy farm, and we gardened together. We've enjoyed wine together, and I've met people that are really dear to me. And so Nashville started to become home. When I decided to open Miel, it was almost 7 years later from moving here. So it took some time. Yeah, I worked in the wine industry. I worked, doing private chef stuff and consulting on wine cellars. And I put a lot of wine cellars together, and it allowed me some time to travel a bit more. When you have a restaurant, you're a little tied. So I traveled a lot. I was in Europe a lot. I spent as much time learning from a different perspective on how things worked infrastructure-wise in a community, composting being a huge part of it. Recycling, I was shocked that when I got here, recycling wasn't the norm. It has become much more so, but 19 years ago, it was not. So just learning and being a regular citizen, taking things in from a guest's point of view instead of the restaurant owner's point of view. And I think that was a really, looking back, it was a valuable time for me to help create what I wanted for the future. And for wine-wise, I got to learn so much, having a huge portfolio of wine that I was tasked with learning inside and out. It's not such a bad thing either.
Yeah, it doesn't sound that bad.
It was a good point.
Great. So our next question is, how did you get interested in sustainability? But it kind of sounds like you were born into it, just, growing up on the farm with your grandparents and everything.
It was very natural for me. And I'll say, I never planned on being in restaurants at all. I'd never even worked in a restaurant when I had my first restaurant. So I worked in political consulting and worked a lot on environmental issues. So I worked with the NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council. I worked with a number of agencies doing canvassing work even, getting college students together to canvass on issues for maybe the Sierra Club wetlands issues, but really worked in government relations in very environmental focused topics for a number of years as I had my first food experiences as an adult in restaurants. So it was just natural for me. And you start to see systems that worked and didn't work. And I think my brain just naturally goes to, like, how do we fix that? What what cog is not in that wheel that needs to be such that it functions well. And I'm, very much like a systems kind of thinker. So I look at it and say, that's actually an easy fix. That's an easy fix. That's low hanging fruit. That's just not possible. Like that'd be really cool, but it's not possible now. So when I arrived here in Nashville and there was not recycling readily available, plugged into that, tried to do what I could to make that more of an item that people plugged into in the community. But then as a restaurant owner, I think I was really shocked that there wasn't composting. I'd always given my food scraps and compost at my previous restaurants to my farmers. And that was just the most natural. They'd drop off and they'd pick up. Natural way to accomplish composting. When I started Miel, I actually had a farm with Sylvia out at what is now Green Door Gourmet, and we composted our food scraps there. Now, taking 5-gallon buckets of smelly food scraps in your car at 100 degrees in the summer is really, really disgusting. And I would prefer not to do that. So I'm very, very grateful that Beetle and the Compost Nashville pick up compost. But, there was a gap there where I wasn't farming anymore and Beetle didn't exist yet in Nashville. And we were trying to, I was like, okay, I can't go out to the farm every day, but I want to try and give these to our farmers. So I give some to Farmer Dave, and, he would come down from Bethpage, Tennessee, but they weren't really set up to do this in the same manner that I had previously experienced in Seattle.
Yeah.
So in that time, I really tried to learn what other cities were doing. And my best friend lives in San Francisco. So and she had curbside pickup, and it was mandated. Like if you commingled your organics with your landfill bin, you would get fined.
Yep.
So, so I just kind of brazenly just called their director of public works and said, hey, can you tell me like how you guys did this? And strangely, he just took like 45 minutes on the phone with me. He's like, okay, let me tell you, because it's actually not as easy as it looks. And I know you think that like we can do anything. We're San Francisco and we're sustainability, queens here, but we're not. So it's really hard. And here are the things that we did that didn't work. And here's the things that we did that I'd replicate. And check out these guys and go up to Vacaville and see our facility, which is up by like Napa. But who you should really talk to are these guys at Zero Waste Energy. And then also go to Europe and check it out. And so that's what I did. I went up to Vacaville. I went to go see Shani, my best friend, and said, hey, while you're at work today, I'm going to this place called Vacaville. I'll be home for dinner. And then I went and met with the guys at Zero Waste Energy, and they're based in Berkeley, and they do digesters. Yep. And they're the first ones that did a digester in Monterey, California, the one that looks like a 4-car garage, for maybe tour buses or something. And it's, loaded in and loaded out. It's not continuous feed. It's like there's an open air aspect to it that we now try and avoid if possible. And then I went to Europe, and I worked at 11 different facilities throughout Europe and just figured out what they did that made it easy on the community. Because the one thing we all know is if you're asking someone to do something new, and I know this for, managing a staff, you're asking for a new habit to be engaged in, and it has to be easy. It has to be user-friendly. It has to make sense. Think back to like a 2 or 3-year-old and they ask you why. And when you tell them why and it makes sense, they do it. Yeah. Well, we're all still 2 or 3-year-olds. Like, make it make sense for me? No problem. But make it like illogical and take more steps than it really needs. Like, that's a hassle. Like, and you're not so smart, so I'm not going to listen to you, just like a kid. And so, really brilliant. Obviously, as you would imagine, through Germany and through Austria, they've got it down. They've just got it down. And they're also culturally kind of more attuned to participating in those common goals. Florence, Italy figured it out. They have an old city, and they figured out how to put community composting in these beautiful, of course, because it's Florence, and they have these big, beautiful like tops to the local bins that sit in the street, and you go underground. They pop them up, and in the middle of the night, they empty them, and then they pop back down in the ground. They figured out a way to retrofit them into this beautiful medieval city. There are ways to do things that we've learned from all these other cities around the world. Tokyo, as you can imagine. Go to Tokyo, and in the subway station, you go to Shinjuku Station, and there every 100 feet, there's a composting like thing. And it's a beautiful pictorial of what goes in and what doesn't go in. Super easy. So there are communities around the world that have figured it out, and they were all incredibly gracious to share the path that they have taken and what worked and what didn't work. So learning from them as to what we should bring back to Nashville, what makes sense to introduce given our climatic conditions, big, really big deal. Our current infrastructure, and that could be hauling infrastructure. It could be our roads. You know, everyone has a different kind of limitations given their highway system. So ours, we have a couple of places that really make sense to connect. Briley Parkway, Old Hickory Boulevard, you know, they kind of run in circles, it starts and stops, but there's some areas that make sense to like how to get in and out of the city. So, I mean, that's a big part of routing. Yeah. And what time you pick up, because picking up in the middle of the night is really the easiest on being efficient with your routing. So all these factors that really make an efficient and successful composting or organics diversion program for a city are what they've shared. And it's really amazing how these different municipalities in their own languages, and sometimes me with a translator or Google Translate on my phone, we're figuring out how we can help one another. And I mean, there'll be times like I was in Rome, Italy at their sustainability like office, and you know, in walks someone from the US Composting Council. And everybody, it's like the community worldwide of people just really trying to help one another. Free flow of information.
Yeah, that's the beauty behind the community. Essentially, you're just talking to people who are passionate about the same things you are. So, yeah, it makes it really easy to have those conversations.
And everybody's willing to help. Yeah.
Yeah. And everything you just said kind of really pairs well with my next question. Along with being a successful restaurant owner, you're also very active in Nashville's sustainability community and a food waste warrior. That can best be seen by your work to get an anaerobic digester facility opened in Nashville. But first, could you tell us exactly what an anaerobic digester is?
Sure. So there is such thing as an aerobic and anaerobic digester. Anaerobic will mean absent of air. So think of what food waste does or organics waste does when it is in a landfill. It is absent of air, and as it breaks down, it produces methane, right? So the really intense greenhouse gas that is then emitted from that landfill. So think of an anaerobic digester as mimicking that, but it will go into an enclosed area, just like a landfill, where it will be forced to produce methane. It will be turned such that it will hasten that process. But that methane, instead of being allowed to go into the air, is then captured. That methane is cleaned because there's other gases in it. There's carbon dioxide, and you actually separate them out. And you clean that gas such that you've produced a renewable natural gas. You've produced RNG, is what we'll call it for short. That methane is then used to power the fleet that goes and picks up the waste. It can be scrubbed and put in our natural gas pipeline and sold on the open market. The CO2 can be pumped into a greenhouse to hasten growth of plants, and the sulfur dioxide can be taken as a separate byproduct as well. So basically, we're taking food waste, instead of putting it in the landfill and having it do something harmful, which is produce that methane into our atmosphere, we are taking it and producing three things. We're producing that methane. That's the gas. We're producing a liquid fertilizer. So all of those nutrients, this is my grandmother speaking, all of those nutrients in those scraps, young lady, like potato peelings, banana peels, like whatever it is, all of those nutrients, those still have, that still has like vitamins in it, right? So those are being made into fertilizer, both liquid and solid, that go back to our local farms. So food waste comprises about, and organics waste comprises about a third of our waste stream. It's significant. Yeah. And I've got to say, when I embarked on this journey of just learning more, I really thought it would be like 8%, maybe 10%. And it's shocking. And you know, part of that is because we are a tourism city. We do have a lot of hospitality-oriented businesses that will produce food waste. We have stadiums
Mhm.
We have a lot of universities, we have schools, and those are all really, really easy places to institute an organics diversion program. We've seen it across the country. We've seen it across the world. And so we have what we would call low-hanging fruit here. Easy ways to start the community in a new habit. You could go to a Titans game and have these big placards and a green sign, and it just will have easy pictorials, just like they did in Tokyo in the Shinjuku station.
Yeah.
So straightforward. And this is what goes in and this is what doesn't. But then the other side of that is procurement. So all the vendors there, if you have 100% compostable plates, cups, and serviceware, like flatware, it's easy. The whole thing goes in.
Yeah.
You end up not having landfill waste at the end. You might have some recyclables and then you have compostables, but we've seen it across the country. Seattle, where I grew up, the Safeco Stadium where the Mariners play baseball is 100% zero waste. And they've done a beautiful job. Plus they have awesome food and beer. So, which is even a bigger bonus. I'm not that into baseball, but I'll go for the games because they have great food.
Food and beer, it sounds like, is your bread and butter, right?
You're down on the water, you smell the ocean coming in. Yeah, the seats are comfortable. No, but so really making this transition from organics being a waste product to understanding it's a valuable resource that our community can benefit from. It's a mindset difference, but it's also, we can't do that and we can't ask our community to participate until we provide the infrastructure.
Exactly.
Here, you should divert your food waste, and where's it going to go? We have the compost company in Ashland City and they do a great job, but they can only do so much. And the style of composting that they do is one of a piece of many, many different types that a community needs in order to fully participate in organics diversion. So the digester is the big industrial type. The digester can take in the huge loads from a Titans game. The digester can take in all of Vanderbilt's waste. Mm-hmm. The digester could take in from Mars Corporation that creates pet food, any of their manufacturing residuals. It could take in from Christie Cookie, any of their manufacturing residuals. Hunt Brothers Pizza. We have some large food manufacturing companies here. So it can take in the sloppy wet waste. It can take in the more solid waste. And there are ways to contain that once it gets on site, such that it is not an open air interaction. And it goes into a hopper and it gets directly fed into the system. Now, we have seen pictures of the old digesters, which look like garages, like the 4 RV garages or something. And that was the original style. And in Monterey, California, that's where Zero Waste did their initial kind of pilot project. And I've worked at that facility a bunch. It's really interesting. It's really cool. But if you want to digest huge quantities of waste and you want it to be totally sealed, you don't want that in and out air exposure, you use a continuous flow digester, and that is a tube. And that tube allows you to put it in, have it be completely sealed until it comes out as liquid, solid, and gas, and is a much cleaner, safer, and you get more energy out of it because there's not an open air experience, 20 to 30% more energy. Mm-hmm. So there's that. There's also a wet digester instead of a dry digester, and that is just a higher percentage of liquids. Okay. And those are being used more and more. They're less expensive to construct. So you can really do either. And a lot of it depends on the site that you have and how you want to manage it. And also the feedstock that you have coming in. Do you have a lot of wet feedstock coming in? Is it better to construct a wet digester, or do we have a lot of solids? So just design decisions to make.
Yeah, just kind of taking stock of what exactly the industries are and wherever you are, trying to set up shop and just adapting to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
That's usually the first question a developer is gonna look at. Like, what is my feedstock here? Who's gonna be participating in this?
Yeah. So what's the current status of the project right now?
So right now, we've morphed a bit because I've been working on this for 8 years. And initially I had a grant from the Department of Environment that was extended and then not extended again. So we lost that money, which also made us lose some matching private money. So our initial seed money to produce this digester, to build it, is gone. Now, there are other grants out there that we could pursue, but the real challenge that we found in this project, the real hurdle, has been finding the right site. So the right site must have good ingress and egress, easy for the types of trucks that are going in and out, in an area that is the type of business, a warehouse, industrial type area. You don't want to go by residences. You don't want to devalue someone's land by all of a sudden make it a trucking route. Yeah. It is easy to get off of a Briley or an Old Hickory Boulevard or something like that, centrally located. It has to have at least 5, but preferably almost 10 acres of land so that you have a buffer zone around it. To me, it's really important that this looks like a pleasant place that we can take Urban Green Lab students to go and have an educational, time. Yeah. This is not a gross, I remember going to the dump as a kid, like, my dad, and we go unload all this stuff. And I thought it was fascinating, but it was gross, it's all bad and that smell stuck with you. That's not what this is going to be. This is a place that really, you think it's an equestrian center or a garden center. Like, you drive up and it's beautiful because we'll have gardens everywhere and everything will be sealed. So it is an engineering, environmental sustainability lesson when you get there, not a lesson in how to clean things up properly. It will be sealed. So, and maybe a good lesson in logistics, like how are things operating here systemically such that it is efficient. A really good Six Sigma lean kind of lesson. Mm-hmm. The siting of this project has been the huge hurdle. We don't want people to misunderstand what it is and think it's a dump, that would be in their backyard. It would never be, but it will have truck traffic and it will have students coming and going. The hope is that this is an educational center for Nashville, that we could partner with Adventure Science Center on programming. We can partner with Urban Green Lab on programming and let the community come in and understand it more such that when they understand it, they participate in the diversion.
Yeah. Again, this really blends well with my next question. But what do you think are some tactics that could be utilized to galvanize greater community support for the digester? And how can we support your efforts?
I think one thing that we've seen work really, really well is working with elementary school children. And what you all have been doing, which is helping teachers understand within their current curriculum, what are those take-home messages? Like, what is a sustainability message from this already scripted lesson from the state? And that right there kind of shines the light on why we have why we participate in certain actions and why we don't in others, just for the children, because there's just this next generation that can employ these habits from the get-go. We've learned that in the cafeteria, if we start having food waste diversion, organics diversion, and we have huge posters showing them what they diverted the month before and what that's equivalent to, mm-hmm. is the most effective thing for students to get excited about participating in that new habit. So for example, such and such elementary, last month you diverted 7 tons of food waste, basically stuff they didn't eat, compostable, we already have compostable lunch trays. Mm-hmm. So food waste or organics waste, that's equal to getting 180 cars off the road for that month, that they did not have emissions for a whole month. That's what you were able to accomplish as a team. So when they see that it's a direct link to like what that does for the environment, they get excited, and it's easy, and you have the big bin there with the pictorial, and they do it. They just naturally do it. And when they get in the habit of it, it's pretty exciting to watch them do that, because they also take it home.
Yep.
And talk to their parents about, which then I get the call from their parents, like, seriously, where are we supposed to compost, Seema? But I'm like, just call Beetle, it's really easy. They're like, now we have to get a compost bin, seriously. But, I'm happy to always go over, now it's COVID, but I'm always happy to go and show someone how to backyard compost. Mm-hmm. If you're gardening already, that's where you want to do it. And I think the biggest thing, our public works department's done a really good job of educating the community on saying, backyard composting, here's a composter, we sell them for cost, and providing lessons. Urban Green Lab has provided lessons. I think it's Turnip Green has provided lessons.
They sure do. Urban Green has a composting class, and going to do a quick plug for Metro Public Works. They have several the Dirt on Composting webinars this month, and I'll be providing that.
Excellent. Oh, please. Yeah. Because those, I mean, and I'll refer people to those. So thanks. I'll get that refreshed link, because they're really well done classes. And the first and foremost thing we can and should do if we're gardening is to take care of our compost on site. Now, if you're not doing that, then there are great services. You know, Compost Nashville is phenomenal. You put a little 5-gallon bucket out and they just take it away. Yep. And you really start to see how much less trash, real trash you have. I mean, the only trash I end up having is packaging that I can't recycle.
Yep.
And everything else is composted or recycled, and it's kind of nice. You feel good about it.
Yep.
The biggest thing I think I would ask that everyone could help is have us understand what is accomplished when we divert organics, so that there's just like I didn't think that there was a huge part of our waste stream in the beginning that went to that was organics. If you let people know 1/3 of our waste stream is actually not waste, it's something that we could be making renewable energy out of, and compost that would go back to our farms, don't you think that's something we should all participate in if there was a facility? And then very soon, if we can find this site and we have identified it, it would be contacting your council person to say, hey, this is something we really want our community to support. And I'm not saying that it needs to be supported financially from Metro. I think it just needs to be supported in that they sign on to, yes, we are going to allow this to be built. Via zoning, it will already be allowed, but we want to also, as a government, participate in it and encourage other businesses that are larger, or maybe incentivize them somehow to participate as well, because it will make our landfill last longer for the items that really do go into a landfill. And the items that don't need to go there will actually benefit our community.
Yeah. Duly noted. Couldn't agree with you more on that. And so we got one more question for you. Urban Green Lab has launched a campaign called #FindYourLab, which encourages everyone to explore sustainable living and create a lab of learning in their own life. Can you tell us what you're currently working on personally to be more sustainable?
So, how to be more sustainable? Okay, well, I'm gonna get onto a topic that seems off topic, but it's hugely important.
Yeah.
Cleaning products. Just gonna get back down to clean. So this is a weird time. Okay, when I was 19, I owned this cleaning business, and it was really awesome because I didn't realize how much money you could make in a cleaning business, and I was really young. But I did sustainable cleaning, and so this is a long time ago. And baking soda and vinegar do amazing things. And if you look at, just like any food that you're going to ingest, if you look at all the ingredients on something, recognize what we're putting down our drains and what we're using and what we're inhaling. Getting back to the basics with cleaning products, and also, what you end up, and right now with COVID, we're all cleaning like crazy. And there is a place for bleach. I get it. There is a place, but there's also white vinegar and lots of baking soda can do so much and really sanitize at the same time. So I know that seems like a strange item to bring up, but in your own life, look, there's a lot of chemicals there, and those chemicals go down the drain. And Metro Water has to clean them out, and they get into our overall community water system. Metro Water does a great job of that, but think if they didn't have to do that as much, and think about what you are inhaling and putting into your home environment. Also, when I put something in the compost, it hasn't touched chemicals. It hasn't. So my compost, when it goes to my worm bin, which I have a vermicomposting in my backyard, it's so easy, but you can't put meat and dairy in it. So a lot of that stuff has to go to the restaurant compost for Compost Nashville. But, I know that nothing has touched any chemicals. It's making sure that the life that is there, the nutrients that are going into that worm bin are not going to kill the worms.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. And we don't want to kill the worms.
We love those little worms. They do a lot of work for us. They give us great fertilizer. My tomatoes are off the charts this year, so yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, sweet. Seema, thank you so much. Now, if viewers have any additional questions or want to get involved, how can they reach you?
So they can always reach me at my restaurant email and at my resource capture email. So Seema at mielrestaurant.com. But also, if we're just going to be talking sustainability, go to resourcecapture.com. Take a look at the fun little video that we put together with the help of the Dean Foundation. And you can it's fun. It's meant to be light, but you can always email me through that website at seema@resourcecapture.com.
Excellent. And before we go, are there any events, specials, I don't know, anything you want to plug and let the viewers know about?
Sadly, not now because of COVID, but what I would love is if you're interested in learning about something that would be coming in the future, just go to resourcecapture.com and sign up for the emails, or tag us, follow us on Instagram, and we will definitely make sure that those social outlets will allow you to know about fun things that will be available, at which point we have a site that we have chosen that will really work best for Nashville and be respectful of everybody in the city. We will let everybody know. I'll need your help with that.
Yeah. I think I'm here to help. I know I'm here to help, and hopefully our viewers are here to help as well.
Awesome. Patrick, thank you.
No, thank you
for your time and your interest in these topics.
Of course. So next week we'll be interviewing Kia Brown from the Nashville Food Project. If you have any questions for Kia or a recommendation for an organization you'd be interested in learning more about, feel free to email me at patrick@urbangreenlab.org. And until next time, remember to live sustainably.